Welcome everyone. This is week 4 of Healing Through Self-hypnosis. So far we talked about an introduction to hypnotherapy, just kind of the basics and what it is. We talked about Milton Erickson, and he's kind of the father of hypnotherapy. And we talked about playfulness and related to childhood and how we can integrate playfulness into our lives, which Michael just shared his experience with us. So thank you for that. Last week we talked about the hypnotic states and conscious versus subconscious and creating your own induction. So all these other weeks are available on video. I have them on my website, meetthehealers.net, and you'll see a tab there for these recordings. So today we're going to talk about integration. And to me, no matter what we do with our spiritual practice, with hypnotherapy, any other openings that we have spiritually in our lives, it's really great. But if we can't integrate that into our lives, then it doesn't really help us. So I think this is probably the most important class so far. So what is integration? And I want to ask the two of you if you have any thoughts about what you think integration means, and then we'll talk about it some more.
So I think integration is to bring into your life what you have learned.
That's pretty much it. So there's a couple of nuances to this that I want to point out. So you have this new level of awareness that you've received during hypnotherapy or another practice. So you want to let this flow, this new flow of energy move through you without resistance. So you might have this realization, and if you're resisting, we're going to talk more about resistance in a few minutes, but we want that new flow, allow that new energy to flow through you. It's also the embodiment of the wisdom that you learn when you're under hypnosis. The realizations and the revelations that you received, they can happen during hypnotherapy, during meditation, during a spiritual practice. Any experience that you have in life can actually be something that opens you up or opens up your mind or your heart to something new. So all of those are things that you can integrate into the rest of your life. And that means you really got a lesson out of it, incorporating what your mind now understands with your heart, your soul, and your physical body. So you might intellectually understand something. And we do that a lot in our lives. We're really up in our heads a lot, and we understand something, but if we don't actually practice it and we don't integrate that into our heart, into our soul, into our physical body, it might not make any difference. Just like the example of exercise, we understand that exercise is good for us, but if we don't do it, then we're not integrating that practice into our lives. We're just having an intellectual understanding about it. And then it's following through by taking action. So you want to practice what you internally understand. And again, this is doing things differently than you did them before. So it's making a change in how you show up in the world. And the last one is that you're mirroring these changes. So in your life, whatever actions you take, your life mirrors it back to you, right? So whatever we have in our mind is generally how we see the world external to us. So we want to mirror these new actions on all levels of our lives. So emotional, transpersonal, psychological, it's walking the talk. The new way that we see the world, we want to integrate that into our daily lives.
There's a lot there, but I think I got it.
The idea of integration, like I said, is to connect the experience with everyday life. And I have 2 examples here. One is that for me personally, in the past, I've been very judgmental about people. I would blame them. I would judge them. I would be like, why is that person not exercising? Isn't it obvious that if they exercise, they'll lose weight? I would just always point the finger at the other people. And in my situation, it was mainly my husband. I was like, it's your fault. It's your fault. Things aren't going right in my life. It's all your fault. So I was like being very judgmental. And once I understood that that wasn't helping me, and that most of the things that I was judging other people about, I wasn't doing myself, that I could point that finger right back towards me. When I learned that, to integrate that learning, I had to stop being judgmental about other people and about myself. So I had to change the way I thought about it. And the other one is drinking wine. If you understand that you are drinking wine or anything, booze, doing drugs, you're doing it because you're trying to cover up your pain, your grief, your sadness. You don't want to feel those feelings. You want to push them down. If you understand that, and you don't make a change, then you have not integrated that understanding into your life. If you make the change and you try to reduce the amount that you drink, then you're integrating. And then if you do that and you're able to look into feelings that you're trying to cover up and release them and let them out, which we'll talk about in a minute as well, that's integration. So the idea is, first you have awareness, then you acquire this wisdom. I'm judgmental. I'm aware of that. And now I understand it in my heart, and I understand why I do it, because my father used to judge me all the time and point his finger at me. And the action I take is that I stop being so critical of myself, and therefore I can stop being so critical of others. Does anyone have an example of something that they've had in their lives kind of like this?
Yeah, I would like say something doesn't go right, or like I'm carrying my groceries and something drops and then another thing drops. I would be very hard on myself and very critical. So that kind of like negative talk, that punitive type of finger pointing was like kind of how my mom used to treat me. And then I found like I hated that. And then I started doing the things that like my mom's voice would be in my head. So I'd have to catch it. I mean, that's the big thing, is the awareness. I would have to catch it during when it's going on.
So you had the awareness, and then you made the change, and you had to change the voice in your head once you were aware of it. It took some effort. It wasn't just naturally, it just didn't happen by itself. It had to
Oh
take some
yeah, because
effort.
those were years and decades of that type of patterning, you know.
Oh yeah, I totally get it. I had the same thing. Thank you. Lisa, did you have an example you wanted to share?
For me, what was coming in my mind was without realizing that I was being judgmental on parents, and and how they should bring up their children, tell them what to do, what not to do, and this terrible and this and that. And then I had my daughter, and then I thought, oh my goodness, I'm never ever judging a parent again.
Yeah,
We are all trying to do the best that we can.
absolutely. That's a great one.
Yeah.
When you start to have that personal experience of being a parent, then you realize, okay, so now I see this isn't as easy as it looks.
Yeah. And all this wisdom that I have, of course, of how to bring up children.
Yes.
It's useless. In the moment, it's like, my goodness, how do you do this? It is hard.
Oh yeah.
And then I was like respecting all parents, no matter what they do. I was always now understanding that everybody's doing the best that they can.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Back in session 1, I talked about my story of the whole reason why I tried hypnotherapy in the first place was because I was having this imbalance where my brain was having way too much weight and making decisions in my life, and I wasn't connecting with my heart, and I was trying to balance those two things. So I just want to go into that a little bit deeper, because in integration, we know that our intellect serves us, right? Like I talked about earlier. And we need to be connected to our hearts as well. Like I said, when change happens in our minds, that's one thing, understanding. When we have a direct experience of that, rather than reading or understanding something, that's when it can really permeate our lives and make for lasting change. I think that we innately understand this, right? Oh, I understand how that works. And until we actually do it, took me quite a long time to practice this. I had to practice for a couple of months, and when I was doing some meditation, and I just tried to focus on my heart. What is my heart saying? And I would ask it, what are you saying? What do you want right now? I would try to have a conversation with my heart. And it was really weird, because it wasn't like your mind, you can talk to your mind, you can talk to yourself. Your mind can tell you things. And it's very much part of our everyday lives. And it feels like it's easy to ask my mind a question, because I can go, well, the good side about it is this, and the bad side about it is this. But your heart doesn't do that. And so how do you know? And it just, for me, it took a lot of practice, and I'm still working on it. I definitely can feel a change now when I'm sort of in the flow and I'm doing things in my life that feel good, that I feel happy, that I'm sleeping well. All these things are signals that my heart is sending me through my physical body, that if I'm feeling tense, my body hurts. If I am feeling unhappy, I don't sleep well. And so I can feel the difference now. I have more paying more attention to it. Vipassana meditation, the 10-day silent retreat, that was probably the biggest shift that I had, because all you do all day is focus on your body, on sensations in your body all day long for 10 days. But I didn't really respect my body as much as I do now in my emotional world, and helping me decide how I want to be in the world. I also know that for me, I had resistance to this. So when we open up, we connect to our hearts, and you think, oh, that's really wonderful. That's going to feel so nice to be connected to my heart, and I can feel love and joy and peacefulness. And we feel in the flow. We might feel expansive. We feel open. We feel blissful. And that's really nice, and it makes us feel happy. And then we realize that not only are we now more open to the joyful parts of life, but we're also open to the other emotions, the sadness, the fear, the grief, the anger and regret. Now, in the past, right, for me, I know I labeled those emotions as bad. I didn't want to feel them. They were scary. They made me cry. I did everything I could to avoid feeling those emotions. And I didn't know at the time that I was also cutting myself off from the good ones. There was a point in time when I was extreme, when I had a little bit of bipolar things happening. So I was either on a very high high, where it was like the most amazing thing in the world, whatever it was I was doing. And then after, I don't know, a week, a few days, I would crash and I would fall into a dark black pit. And I wasn't able to find that balance in between. So I had, so after a time when I started on the spiritual path, I had some resistance, because when I was starting to feel the emotions come up, all of them, the joy and the sadness and the fear and the anger and the grief, I didn't know what to do with it, because in the past it was extreme one way or the other. But in the middle here, I wasn't comfortable in that area. And I was afraid, and I didn't really know how to handle it. So it was a time, and it just took me a while to get used to it. And because the reason why I was able to move through it was because I had built up a support system. So I had people I could talk to, I had friends I could call and let them know I was feeling really crappy, and they listened to me. And I went to support groups, and I was able to cry at the support group and talk about how I was feeling really bad about myself or about something in my life. And when I was in these situations, it was sort of like I felt normal, because in these support groups I was in, everybody else was doing the same thing. They were sharing their sadness and their joy and their pain and their positive parts and their negative parts. So it was a safe place for me to see other people sharing their emotions, and therefore so could I. So I think that's a really important factor, is in order for us to really expand into integration, is that we have to have people around us to support us in these areas, so that we can express whatever emotions we have. In the bottom one, it says, in fact, we need to feel all the emotions. It's called being human. Have either one of you had any experiences where you kind of started opening up and you felt resistance to it?
Yeah, I've gone through like major overhaul in my whole being in the last 2 years. So I've just had to process codependency, process attachment issues, lots of stuff that are like deeper layers of feeling that I couldn't connect with, having to go through a lot of that, and identify where my body I'm feeling it, I think was important.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, kind of like embracing it in a way to release it. I've had to do a lot of sitting with stuff, and not saying you got 5 minutes to clear out, you got to kind of, it may be a day or 2 days before it'll even start to move.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I totally get it. I have had similar things to clear out, and it takes time and patience and courage. Lisa, anything you want to share?
So for me, I mean, I've been in this path just working on that specifically for a very long time. And it's nice to see how your life changes when you're able to integrate this in a much better way.
Yeah, that's part of life.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed is that there's this whole duality aspect in life, and that the resistance can be the shadow to the allowing, and the
Yes.
allowing is that sitting and being, and it's kind of like a masculine feminine, but some people don't like to use those terms, but it is like a yin yang kind of a duality, that the solution is in the problem, you know,
Yes.
that when you sit with it and it opens up, then you realize why you needed the contrast of sitting in it to show you the allowing part of it.
When I was shaking things up in the past couple of years, it impacted everyone around me, especially my partner, my husband. And so everything was thrown up in the air. And it really made me feel uncertain about my relationship and made him feel very uncertain. And he was very threatened for good reason, because I was going through a major change in myself. And he was very afraid of what was going on and that he was going to be left behind. So when you shake things up, the relationships change. It says here you might want to give up and try to go back to how things were before. And I had that happen to me. What I ended up learning in the end was that things will never go back to the way they were before, because that was terrible. I don't want to be back the way they were before. Our relationship was not healthy. And so I don't want to go back to that. And until I got enough strength in my sort of new being or new way of being, I mean, I couldn't re-engage with that relationship because I kept reverting back to the way that I was before. And every time I'd be like, I don't want to be there again. I wasn't happy. This relationship wasn't working. It's been 2.5 years of kind of going back and forth. And now I feel way stronger in myself and who I am. And I still have work to do. I think I always will. But I think I made a very big shift in the way that I see myself and the way that I see the world. If we go on to the next slide, I'm sure you've heard of the hero's journey. So this is like a very simple version of the hero's journey, right? We have our ordinary world here up at the top, here at the top. Sorry about the noise. And then we have a departure, right? We have this call to adventure. So something happens, either an opportunity falls into our lap and we decide we're going to go for it. Sometimes we seek it out. So you have a departure from your ordinary world. Now, in my case, I did some plant medicine a couple years ago, and that was my first departure. That was the call to adventure. It cracked me wide open emotionally, and that began my journey. That was the first time I separated from my husband, and I had to go on this journey to get back myself. So the second part of this path is this trials, allies, and enemies. And they also call this the initiation. So what happens here is that people come in and people come out. Support systems come in, support systems come out. People try to pull you away from doing this work. Those are the enemies. Those are the ones who are not the ones that you want. You have to be able to sort of stand strong and move through these different aspects, these different situations, these different people, experiences that happen during this time. So for me, I went on meditation retreats. I found a meditation teacher. I started to do more yoga. I found a couple of new support groups that focused on relationships, like a 12-step program for relationships, codependency. I found support. I found new ways to engage with myself and to learn more about what the issues were that I was struggling with from other people, through other people's experiences, through sharing, through journaling. I did a little bit of traveling on my own. When I went through all that, that took about 1.5 years, and it was a lot of very difficult times, and a lot of confusion and a lot of ups and downs. And then so reward, the return is the third part, which is the reward and the way back. As it says here, you're rewarded with lessons and wisdom and courage, and you come back sort of a changed person. And I feel like I'm kind of in this area right now where I feel more centered in myself, more confident in who I am. I know myself better than I ever have before. And I'm just starting on the path to sharing the wisdom or the experiences that I've had with others through telling you these stories, through doing those interviews I'm doing with the Meet the Healers, and then having healing experiences and sharing them. And I hope that sharing my experience will help others. So that's kind of the summary of the hero's journey. And there's a lot of stuff online about it if you want to learn more. It's really fascinating. And Joseph Campbell is the one who sort of designed this or thought about it.
I heard it.
Yeah. And we do this in our lives many, many, many times. This isn't like a one-time deal and then you're done. It keeps happening. You do this hero's journey over and over and over again for different things in different situations. It could be work, relationships, family. Here are some ideas for how to integrate. I'd love to hear from you about how you integrate when things are changing in your life. How do you integrate?
I think that for me, the connection with nature is the one that I use the most. Like it's like connecting to nature helps me reflect on the learning experience and how I can apply it to my daily life. And then the dancing, I love it, but I don't really use it to integrate, but more to have fun. And I'm definitely not jumping in this ocean.
Not this one.
No, take me to a tropical one and I'm there.
Yeah.
But not in this one.
Michael, do you have any you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, nature is definitely one. I live in Felton in the Redwoods, so I moved down there because I'm very empathic. So, like, I used to take ownership of everything I felt, and this has been a challenge for me, is that, and I work in a hospital in Silicon Valley, and these environments, you can just kind of like have this residue on you. It's kind of like, you know, if you work with someone and you get their stuff during that session. So I had, you know, the nature kind of cleanses and purifies that. And then there's no better area to be empathic with than nature, because you're harmonizing or cohering with that energy. So it's beautiful. So I've been kind of connecting a lot with water and trees and earth, the elements. And I do Tai Chi and Qigong. And I was really proud of myself in integrating, because I did a national presentation yesterday for a spinal cord conference on wheelchair Tai Chi. And I was very calm. I was able to present. And I'm usually very socially anxious when I have to get up and but one of the things was we use elements of nature and embody them, like being tall like a tree with our posture, or being still like a mountain, or flowing like a river. And they have a lot of depth. Those classics have a lot of depth, just like the yoga and Hindu practices. So Qigong and Tai Chi are very helpful.
Nice. When I ride my bike or swim, I get so much stuff comes up for me. I don't know why, but that's when I have all these like realizations and downloads, and things start, like the pieces sort of fit together of things like, oh, that happened, that happened, that happened. And I'm riding my bike and it's like, oh, now I understand or I see. But mostly it's when I'm moving, doing some kind of activity.
I mean, I think sometimes, like when we're in our passion in our heart, we're not thinking we're integrating, but subconsciously we probably are in some way, right?
Oh yeah, I totally agree. And I think just doing an activity that brings you joy, just for the pure, like just because it brings you joy, that's the only reason you do it. That's just in itself is integration. It's just having permission to just play. Like you said, Lisa, dancing, you do it because you like it and it's fun. Sometimes things come out of me when I do my art that are very powerful. It's more often I'm just doing it for the pure joy of it. The changes that might happen in our lives from any kind of spiritual opening or awareness or awakening or hypnotherapy, it's about how we treat others, how we treat ourselves, and how we respond to situations, how we show up in our lives. That's pretty much sums up what life is. Sometimes we think that we have to put other people first, and we don't take care of ourselves, and then we end up not being able to be there for others because we're depleted. So treating ourselves is probably the number one thing. So if we can show up in our lives with joy, it's not even with joy, it's really with authenticity, because that could be grief and sadness and pain and anger, but we want to be authentic. We want to have all of this and show up and be vulnerable, like Brene Brown talks about all the time, with everything that's happening for us. And that gives others permission to do the same. And isn't that what we really want, is to be a light, to show, be an example for other people. So I'd like to know if anybody has any insights, comments, questions they want to share.
That last section just really triggered me, and but it's good. It's in a good way. My codependency comes from abandonment, and I just realized last year that, you know, it wasn't other people that were abandoning me. It was that I was abandoning my own life. And then the mirror would show that people would leave. So that was really difficult to own that.
Yeah.
But I have. And, you know, I've stepped into my own space with love and compassion and pride, and, you know, so
Wow.
just kind of opened up some stuff.
Yeah, it's, you know, when we go through this, I know it happens to me all the time. When you're opened up, and it comes out, and you never know when it's going to come out. And
Well, I've learned, you know, that crying is very healing. So
yes.
I allow myself to. When it comes up, it comes up.
Yep.
I allow it.
Yeah. Thanks for being real.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. That's beautiful.
I had such terrible vision of myself. I was not good enough. I can't do anything right. I'm a terrible mother. It was just this negative self-talk. That was what was in my mind all the time. And that came from my dad. I internalized all of that. And it took me a long time to unwind that tape and to reprogram and to stay positive about myself. But it's a different way. It's like, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay not to be perfect. It's okay to have ups and downs. And before, I didn't allow that for myself. So hypnotherapy is just one of many techniques that we can use to access these parts of ourselves that we want to activate, show up, clear out, recognize, learn. I know it's just a taste. There's so much more to learn.
I have a question about that.
Sure.
If it's okay, a very practical one. So sometimes I have a hard time going to sleep. And I was thinking about the other session and what you said about the phrases. And I was wondering, like, what can I do in the moment that I'm trying to fall asleep so that it helps me when I can't? And I was thinking like something like you were saying, like, and as I breathe, I notice that I start falling asleep, or I don't know. What do you suggest?
This is what I used to do, because I sometimes have trouble falling asleep as well. On YouTube, there's a lot of really good hypnotherapy or just sleep meditations.
I love Michael Sealey. For some reason, his voice just is naturally.
How do you spell his last name?
Sealey. I really like the hypnosis, that idea of like not mulling in the problem, going right to the solution. You know, I am calm. I am wanting a beautiful night's sleep, as opposed to unpacking all the layers of the heaviness of why you can't sleep. Is that's all that's needed? Like, we don't have to have the process to go unpack all the things of our day and clear our mind, or we can just go right to solution? Or does that take training for our mind and body to be able to get there to that level?
But yes, you bring up a very good point, Michael, is that figuring out why you're not sleeping would really be a deeper solution. Do you know why you're not sleeping?
So this has been a 5-year journey. of healing it in one aspect, healing it with another aspect, the investigating one part, trying one solution, trying another solution. And it has shifted. You cannot imagine how much. I mean, I'm so grateful for the way that I'm sleeping right now. And it's beautiful compared to how it was before. And so it has shifted. And I still keep on exploring it because it happens once in a while. And this is why I was wondering if I'm looking for all the tools available, and I tried them all. And I have gone with all these tools to also finding why is that there, what do I need to heal, what is that in my life, what is it telling me. I mean, this has really been a journey, and it's something that it comes in my family from several generations as well. So it's not only me from my life, but it also it's something that's there from previous generations and several generations as well. So that it's huge, and I've really progressed a lot. And because I like to find and use all the tools I can, then this was one more that I can add, and that's where it's coming from.
I see, got it.
But it would be like a Band-Aid for sure.
Yeah,
I completely see that, but it's not, because all the work has been done.
right, good.
It's just one more tool added to all that I've learned from the healing that's already taken place. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Yeah.
Just want to say, like, I notice everyone's kind of been on their own journeys, and it's been nice to, run track with you all and kind of share our stories, because we're all like going through this, right? We're all processing the last 5 years or whatever.
And it is really nice to have other people, to share stories, share successes, share difficulties, and because it makes us feel like we're in this together, that we're not alone in our struggles, because we tend to isolate sometimes. So I really appreciate everyone who came on these calls and shared their stories and was able to be vulnerable about what was happening in their lives. So I thank you, because this wouldn't be very much fun if I was doing it by myself, would it?
Well, thank you for doing this and for all the information and for all the support.
You're welcome. All right, well, thanks everybody. I'm going to sign off, and please reach out if you have any more questions.
And take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.